a super duper part of our service. I asked Reverend Kathleen if she would like to speak for Easter. And she said to me, "Well, I thought the ministers always do that." I said, "Well, you're a minister. You ought to be able to handle that." And so she thought about it for a while, and then she said yes. And I was so happy. When I first met Reverend Kathleen and Gregory, Reverend Kathleen was the other minister that lived down the street. And she would occasionally be asked to come and speak. And of course, she always did a fabulous job. And then they started coming here regularly. And then she became the choir director. And now they've been members here for a few years and very involved in what's going on at the Center of Enlightenment, taking classes, attending services, and so on. And we still have the wonderful privilege of hearing Reverend Kathleen give super duper messages. And we've become good friends, and I'm really pleased with that. So without any further ado, please welcome Reverend Kathleen Hellenberg to the platform.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter. Happy Easter.
I am a peace minister of the beloved community, and we honor all paths to the divine. And the Center of Enlightenment Church is open to people of all religious and spiritual backgrounds, because not all who attend services and classes here have a Christian foundation. I'm going to talk about Easter from a spiritual and even cosmic perspective, sharing information with you from several folks who have done a lot of work from those points of view and who had a conscious awareness of it from a very young age. If at some point you wonder, what's that got to do with Easter? Bear with me, I promise it will become clear. There is a calendar I've been using called the Pleiadian Earth Energy Calendar by Pia Orlean, PhD, and her husband, Cullen Baird Smith. My husband, Gregory, and I listen to a webinar every month, and Pia and Cullen were the guest speakers on it for a few times, and they are two of our favorites. Pia is a respected intuitive astrologer and author, and Cullen is an author, empathic, intuitive, and visionary with extraordinary healing abilities who began using energy to support the healing of others when he was 4 years old. They work with a loving group of interstellar beings called Larkma, who communicate with Cullen and Pia heart to heart through the energy of love, and they've written several books together. The calendar emphasizes energy rather than time, using the 13-day period of the Mayan calendar, together with 13 universal energies and 20 earth energies to show which of them influence each day and each 13-day period. The universal energy that is connected with today is initiating. This energy comes directly from source and is filled with unity, possibility, and intention, and is the best energy for new beginnings. The earth energy that is connected with today is transcending. This energy will be present today and for the next 12 days, along with a different earth and universal energy for each individual day. The dictionary says to transcend means to rise above, to surpass, to exceed. In the calendar, it is written that transcending gives us an opportunity to be loyal to the truth over everything else, transcending limiting ideas and paradigms. There couldn't be a better combination of energies for today than initiating and transcending, because Christ, by transcending death, initiated a new beginning for all of humanity on Easter Sunday. In preparation for today, I asked my husband to keep an eye out for a few subjects I wanted to talk about, and he found an episode of the television show Ancient Aliens with the title Divine Numbers. It was all about the number 12. One very important aspect of Christ's ministry was to gather around him 12 men. Why 12? Plato said that 12 is the mystical number of the universe. We see many examples of 12 in everyday life on earth. 12 hours on our clock faces, 12 notes in an octave, 12 months in a year, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 cranial nerves, and 12 strands of DNA. There is a planetary grid theory that there are 12 vortices in various locations around the globe, similar to the Bermuda Triangle, that are thought to be exit and entry points from the Earth to the rest of the cosmos. It is believed that the actual shape of the universe is a 12-sided shape, a dodecahedron, that represents the ether, the life-sustaining life force that animates everything. The number 12 is symbolic of perfection, completion, and most important of all, mastery of the human condition. It is believed to be a code of the power of God, which makes it possible to tap into something higher. History is full of examples of 12 divinely appointed advisors, such as the 12 bodhisattvas, the 12 Olympians who fought against the Titans, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 Knights of the Round Table, and of course, the 12 apostles. To answer the question, why 12, we need to look at some information that was given by Rudolf Steiner in a lecture he gave entitled The European Mysteries and Their Initiates. Steiner was clairvoyant, and he gave many, many public lectures on esoteric information that had previously been kept secret. In this lecture, he spoke about the knowledge known in the ancient mystery schools that when a group of 12 initiates gathered together, with each person working to develop the powers of his soul in a distinct direction, they formed a kind of higher organism or body that made it possible for a higher spiritual being to dwell among them. This spiritual being was the 13th of the group. It was also possible to choose a 13th person who was considered to be the connecting link, who made it possible for the higher influence to descend. So the 13th was recognized as the representative of the Godhead. The 12 formed the foundation for the 13th. I was raised in the Catholic faith, and I do not remember a distinction being made of a difference between Jesus and Christ. Jesus and Jesus Christ were interchangeable names for the Son of God. But there is an enormous distinction shown by what occurred during Jesus' baptism. And this was only possible as a result of eons of preparation, both in the spiritual world and on earth. Now, here's where this gets really cosmic. In a lecture Steiner gave based on the Gospel of St. Luke, he talked about Christ as, quote, the leader of those spiritual beings who left with the sun, S-U-N, when it separated from the earth, and established for themselves this higher sphere of action in order to work upon the earth from outside. I'm going to repeat that. The Christ was the leader of those spiritual beings who left with the sun when it separated from the earth, and established for themselves this higher sphere of action in order to work upon the earth from outside. Part of this working upon the earth from outside by the Christ being was the process of descending to earth in preparation for incarnating into a human physical body. Meanwhile, on earth, work was being done to prepare a body that one day would be able to fully receive the Christ being into it. The result of all this work started when Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River by his cousin John. Others who were baptized by John experienced something that otherwise only takes place after death, which is that the etheric body is lifted out of the physical body and is freed from its power for just a few moments. When Jesus was baptized by John, however, his etheric body was drawn out, and during that moment, the Christ descended into his body. Jesus, who received the Christ into himself, was not merely baptized or endowed, but anointed. That is to say, permeated through and through by Christ. The baptism of Jesus by John in the Jordan marked the point of time in the evolution of humanity when this heavenly 13th being, the Christ being, as spiritual substance itself, appeared on the earth. So this is the reason Jesus gathered 12 men to follow him. It enabled a higher being, Christ, to dwell among them in Jesus. When they did this, they were rising out of the physical into the spiritual world. The number 12 is important, but 13 is what lifts us out of a circle into a spiral that contains new possibilities. Because what was experienced through 12 has to be brought together in 13 to be fully understood and integrated. Only after this integration is it possible to ascend to a higher level. As Jesus Christ spent the 3 years of his ministry teaching from this integrated existence, the Christ being was permeating every level of Jesus's being. By the time of his crucifixion and death, this was so complete that it enabled him to conquer death. Christ descended far more deeply than any other guiding spirits of the past who had incarnated to help humanity, cosmic and human, because not only did he bring heavenly forces into an earthly body, he spiritualized that earthly body and all that it's made of and all that it represents of nature on every level of being. The pre-Christian saviors redeemed mankind with divine forces. Christ redeemed mankind with human forces. These human forces were then made manifest in all their original, pristine power. Rudolf Steiner saw this transcendent work of Christ as the turning point of time. Up until the resurrection, humanity was detaching more and more from an awareness of spirit and becoming more and more attached to the material plane. In order to become conscious of spirit, it had become necessary to have an initiation by a mini-death experience. With Christ's rising after death in a spiritualized body, it became possible for humanity to have a consciousness of spirit without having to die. If this hadn't been accomplished, humanity would have become so detached from spirit, they wouldn't have been able to reconnect with it, nor even understand the need to do so. World evolution is brought about by the gradual spiritualization of all that is material. And the first Easter Sunday is what laid the foundation to make this a possibility. And that is why Christ, by transcending death, initiated a new beginning for all humanity on Easter Sunday. And so it is.
Wow.